Just a quick note on this episode. It contains discussions of emotional abuse, financial abuse, and domestic violence. So if you feel like any of those might be an issue for you, perhaps skip this episode. And if while you're listening it brings up anything for you, we'll have links to help in the show notes. Thanks. Tom.
Hello.
Showering with a partner, yes or no?
Oh, yes. Fantastic. Let me roll up my sleeves as I answer. I'm against bathing with a partner in terms of in a bath.
Right.
That's no.
Why?
Because I get the tap in the back all the time.
Oh, okay.
I'm taller than 6 foot, so very little baths.
Yeah.
And then once there's a partner in there with you, nightmare. I overheat. Heat affects me terribly. So as soon as you're like snuggled up in the womb in a bath with a partner, 2 minutes in, I'm sweating, and I've forgotten my drink on the side, so I can't go get it. Showering with a partner is interesting. Sometimes, if it's skewing sexy, sometimes you're trying to wash and clean yourself, and sexiness is trying to overlap with that, and it depends
what you need to do, right? Like if you need to get somewhere, that can be a little bit annoying.
I would say the showering with a partner, or 3, 4, 5 people.
Ooh, hello! How big's your shower?
Is totally fine, but agree on what you're going to do in there first. I think if you know,
we're going to get you to sign the shower contract to say this is a business shower.
Or
no sexy times.
Let's get cleaning out of the way first before any sort of hanky-panky arises. What do you believe, Elizabeth Best?
Look, I'm all in for showering as long as we're like, if this is just we need to just both have a shower at the same time. But like, it depends how big your shower is. I've broken a shower rail before from trying to grab onto it during sexy times, and then my landlord was very unimpressed with me. I am into bathing with a partner, but that is because I am very little.
Yes,
I am a small person, and I usually get the person so that there's not facing each other. So there's one person lying down, and then I'm the little spoon in the bath. Although my current bath is very shallow, like it's just not a nice deep tub, so that wouldn't be enjoyable.
99.9% of the time, I am the big spoon.
Yeah, well,
in bed and in bathing
someone
scenarios.
Would have to be pretty tall to be.
That's right. So that's hence me turning down my nose. At the bathing together. But if you can, a sexy shower that then moves into like sexy times elsewhere. Because people love we all love the idea of like sex in a spa or in a shower or in a pool.
Water sex, no,
terrible lubrication. It's not good.
It's sexy to lead up to sex in water, but water is not a good lube.
You're
people,
frustrating.
it's not fun.
It's no good. Well, there you go, dear readers of Ghosts and Boyfriends Past. Send in your thoughts. Do you enjoy sexy showering? I nearly said shaving.
Can you shower without it getting sexy time with a partner?
Can you do it?
Is it possible?
Do you have the resolve?
Do you have the resolve to get through a shower and just do the business end of the shower? Welcome to Ghosts of Boyfriends Past. I'm Liz Best.
I'm Tom Harris. Hello, everybody.
I just kind of felt like a bit of a lighthearted shower sexy times chat to start.
Splashing.
Yes. So we've got a guest here today because it is one of our main episodes.
Right.
So rather than, faff on a bit, I'm just going to introduce her straight away.
Let's do it.
We have Lucy with us. Hello Lucy.
Hello.
Hello and welcome.
Thank you so much for joining us today. So we've got Lucy in, and she's got a bit of a saga to tell, I'd say, today.
Story.
And it's one of those ones where we want to make sure that everyone's super comfortable because it might be a little bit of a hard story to tell, but we're all friends here, and this is all basically going back to the whole what did we learn at the end of everything. And that's the most important thing.
New readers to the show, that's our mission goal. We get a guest on every main episode, and that guest will share a story from a relationship gone by. Marriage, one date, doesn't matter, all and sundry in between. What we're not here to do is laugh at anyone else or attack other people. Or
we have a no threats rule. On mic though, Lucy. Off mic,
that's right.
Written away.
We want to get the story in, broadcast the story to the world, and we want to learn from it. That's the main takeaway. So we did touch on some rules, Lucy, before we hand it over to you and your story. One of them was in there. No threats on microphone. That's
on mic. That's the important part of that.
Important.
We have lots of fun off mic conversations at this
Yes.
podcast, I have to say.
And anyone who figures out who Lucy is and who she's talking about today in her stories, no doxing. We don't want pitchforks and torches in the streets.
Not what we're about. This isn't an assassination podcast. This is a people sharing their own stories so that other people can learn and grow and live and love and kumbaya and all that shit.
Yes, and ideally, Lucy, you'll have an alias for the people you're talking about today. That's our third rule, just so that we can keep everything nice and clean. So an alias would be nice. I think we've had the devil before.
Oh.
So
last time I was on, I was like, oh, what did I call him last time? Fuckwit, probably.
Yeah, so it can be, it can be
well,
Bob, or
I
you can
did
be.
consider Dick.
Yeah.
Then
Dick.
I thought there's probably been a few of those.
There has not been a single dick on this podcast
Really?
in that context.
But then
There have been many dicks on the podcast, but we haven't called them dicks.
Some Richards listening at home will now be,
and I thought maybe
terrified.
that's not giving it like the seriousness that it deserves.
Right.
Look, stories can be roller coasters. You can have a story that's serious as, and we're still going to be laughing in the middle of it. So up to you. What alias are we going to go with today?
I was going to use Justin.
Okay, Justin.
Very good.
Justin. That's not a threat. I just said it. I just said the
said
word
it in
funny.
I just said
It's
it with
fine.
some spice.
We're all good. Okay, so where do we want to start
Yes.
this story, Miss Lucy?
Well, I don't know. Maybe at this how it started.
Yeah, sure. So how did you meet this person?
So Justin and I worked together. We were both personal trainers. We worked at a gym.
Mm-hmm.
And we met through working there. I'd been in several longish term relationships before, like 2 years, and I'd lived with prior boyfriends. But at this stage I was about 25. And he just kind of swept me off my feet. I was just coming out of a 2-year relationship where I was sort of a third priority after sport and work.
Fun.
Oh, and hitting golf balls.
Uh-huh. Sure.
And that guy was about 10 years older than me and sort of wanted to settle down. And I was like, So along came Justin and a lot of attention and notes on my windscreen, flowers, just telling me everything that I always wanted to hear. And
Was it a quick whirlwind kind of introduction, or was it more?
well, we knew each
meted
other
out?
through work. We'd been working together for a few years, but I'd always worked mornings and he'd worked evenings.
Sure.
So our paths hadn't really crossed. And then the manager went away for a month.
Manager's away.
And
Yeah.
so in his absence, Justin was manager.
Right.
And we spent more time together. So it just grew from there really quickly. So within about 3 months we were living together.
Wow.
And he proposed a year after our first date.
Right. So you're only 26 at this point.
26.
26, 27.
Yeah, I was almost 26 when we started seeing each other.
Yeah.
So 27, I was 28 when we got married.
Right.
So it all happened pretty much. We got engaged a year after our first date, and then we got married 8 months after that.
To move in together after 3 months, it seems to me quick, and then only a year sort of together seems to me quick. They're my initial thoughts.
See, it's
going
quick
in.
for now, but
Yeah,
even 10 years ago, it wasn't that quick to be getting married.
Just some initial thoughts.
Well,
off
I
the
think
top.
especially I felt like I was, one of those people at school. 25 seemed old.
I was
Yes.
convinced I was going to be married by 24, kids by 26. That
Same.
was as a
Same.
school
so
person.
to get to like 26 and then, and then that person proposes, like no one had ever proposed to me before.
Yeah.
Like I'd had serious boyfriends, but I think for me too, I was really looking for that. Like I didn't have a very stable home family life myself or upbringing. So I really always wanted to have that family unit and be a mom and create that, have a home and create that, I guess what I felt like I didn't have.
Yep.
And what society tells us that we're supposed to have as well.
Well, I guess for me it was also security.
Yeah.
I felt like safe.
Yeah.
I thought that's what it was going to be.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, like I had really nice boyfriends before that, but they just had never proposed or seemed to show signs that it was heading in that direction. So I used to joke that I had this 2-year cutoff. And, nothing would necessarily go wrong, but sort of 18 months in, if there wasn't like sign of they were going to propose or they weren't like, I don't know, I would just start dialing out.
Plenty of people have that though. And I think to some degree, if your goal is marriage and children as a woman, you do have to have a time limit with, you know, not necessarily if you haven't proposed by I'm out, but if I don't think that we're headed towards marriage and that's what I want and I need my womb to still be working, like you got to put the time clock on it.
Well, I think for me also it was like if you really loved me.
Yeah.
If you really thought I was special, like I was the one, you would have done it by now.
Yeah.
You obviously don't think I'm that special, which was probably more how I felt about myself. I needed someone else to like feel that about me.
Yeah.
I think.
That makes sense.
So, along comes this guy and woof, he proposes like our first anniversary. And I'm like, yes.
Of course.
Yes, you want to spend your whole life with me? You picked me?
Yeah.
That's how it felt.
Yeah.
And I didn't really question it much beyond then, like what it actually then meant to, I mean, I never married not wanting it to not be forever.
Yeah.
Like I had a very strong idea of it's the one person forever and no matter what, like I'm there for it.
Yeah.
Which in retrospect probably kept me there a lot longer than than I should have stayed.
Okay, so you've gotten married. Are you still happy at this point?
Again, retrospect's a wonderful thing, isn't it? In retrospect, there were so many flags that I should have seen.
And were you still after? Sorry, you got
yeah,
married.
We still
work
together.
So
you're
seeing each other every day.
Yeah,
and then at home.
So it was
and
really
then,
intense. But at first, that's sort of intoxicating.
Yeah, of course.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And then if there are any sort of bumps along the road, you're like, well, of course, we work together, we live together. But to be honest, like in that first few years, I hardly saw my friends. We did everything together all the time, and we just wanted to be together. And like, he wasn't a very social person. He was really awkward meeting my friends or being in a group scenario. So but I thought, it's because he loves me so much. He just wants to be with me all the time. Yeah. And that was, I thought that was good. But he could just be really hot and cold. And, in the early part of our relationship, I'd be waiting for him to finish work. I'd be upstairs and I'd be talking and whatever and to drive home and I'd be sitting there going, well, where is he? Because he'd be down in the office. Normally I'd be upstairs at the desk and someone would go, oh, he went. And I'm like, what do you mean he went? And they're like, oh, no, he's gone. He went like, half an hour. And I'm like, but I'm waiting up here for us to go home together. And I'd get in contact with him. I'd be like, what the hell? And he just got into a tantrum and just left. Nothing would have happened. But, it could be triggered by like someone talking to me in the gym or just, I don't know. He was, I guess really, he could be really jealous.
Yeah.
Right. Easily triggered in that regard.
Which,
I'm getting an itchy button finger. Not quite yet, but I'm getting an itchy button finger.
Yeah.
Sense
like
that.
I felt like a lot of the time I was running damage control. And that became a theme in our relationship as well, like little things, like if I uploaded a picture on Facebook and it got 50 likes and all these people commented on it and he uploaded the same picture but it got little response, somehow that was something for him to be mad at me about. Like, how come it's always you? How come you're so like, why do people respond to you like that?
Because I'm an attractive female on the internet, and it's different rules for men and men and women on the internet. Basically, that's basically it.
But that's it. That's 100%
it. Just is.
Well, and even like in the early days, like if we were out and about and someone went, oh, you're so lucky, you've got such a beautiful wife, something like that. He'd be like, oh, I know. People tell me all the time. And it'd be so embarrassing. Like I'd just be like to the point where if I could sense that someone was about to say something like that, I'd just type. I'd be like, oh, fucking don't say it. Just don't. Like,
that's got to be hard on your self-esteem as well. Like you can't ever enjoy a fucking compliment.
No.
And like you were a model back then, yes? So literally your job to look hot.
It was funny because it was a real double-edged sword. It could go either way.
Yeah.
Either it was like, look what I've got. And
only when it was convenient for him, though.
Yeah, but then just for no reason, it could then go the other way too. But I don't know. I think over time, that's what I felt value for, was being more like a
trophy.
Yeah, I guess. Even though I just, it sounds
term's
weird
not
to
great,
talk about it
but
like that, but it's like, I've realized that it's like I couldn't leave the house without makeup on. I felt like I always had to be that person. I didn't feel like I could kind of switch off. And like, this was a long-term relationship, so that it's hard to keep that up.
Yeah.
And, over the years, as the years went on, and I had a couple of kids, and he'd say things like, I'd get home from a day out shopping or whatever, and he'd be like, how many wolf whistles did you get today?
Oh, for fuck's sake. Press the button.
Yeah, here we go. Where are
Yep, there we go.
And I'd go, oh, well, I don't know. I wasn't really paying
50
attention.
million.
Yeah, that's
Thanks,
right. I lost
sir.
count.
But I'd be like, I don't
know.
know. I wasn't paying attention, because what a question. Like,
Yeah.
that's a no-win.
That is the biggest trap
It's a no-win.
question that I've ever, like,
because
you're like, none.
If I
you weren't trying hard enough.
if I say 3, then it's like, oh, well, you liked that attention. That would be a problem. If I say, I don't know, I wasn't paying attention, it must have been a lot, or something's happened that you don't want to tell me. And in the end, like, I'd be like, none. And he'd be like, oh, you're slipping.
Jeez. Boy, there we go. We'll just mash that.
Yeah.
Jeez, that's poor. That's really, really, really poor. I'm so
I'm
sorry.
feeling anxious for you, Lucy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
I'm
that's
gonna
just
get
making me like, that's not walking on eggshells. That's walking on fucking broken glass, like, all of the time.
Yeah, and I mean, I did model for a few years, which it was not. I didn't really enjoy it. I did pretty well at it, but I was just, I don't know, just something about it just being so surface and about how you look. Like, that's never been what I've been about.
No.
So for the last probably 15 years, I've been a hair and makeup artist. So I love helping people feel beautiful.
Good for you.
But yeah, for me, that whole surface thing. But it's weird. I just guess I felt like pushed into, like, that's why he loved me.
Yeah.
And that was the value that he had. That's how it felt.
That was your value to him.
Yeah.
And so did anything change once you had children? Did anything, like, what happened then?
Well, one, he wasn't the centre of my universe anymore.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he didn't cope with that at all. So we had a little boy first, and he was a pretty difficult baby. And, of course, suddenly I'm at home with a baby and he's still going to the gym, like, so personal trainer. So go on at like 5:45 in the morning, home for a few hours in the middle of the day when Lucas would generally be sleeping, then home, off to work again for like 4, not home till like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So I was pretty much, for a lot of that, I was like a single married person, because I did all sort of the hard stuff on my own. Which, in time was a good thing, because he just didn't cope at all. But Lucas only ever, especially when he was little, wanted me, and he would take that as a personal affront.
Can I just quickly interrupt and ask, are you okay with having your kids' names on here, or do you want us to go back and bleep those?
No, I think I'm okay.
Cool. Just needed to make sure.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I was just going to tell Zane
No.
to mark it.
My kids are fully, they're not babies now.
Yeah.
They're not little. My son's 18, nearly 19.
Yeah.
And my daughter's 16 and a half. And they know what's
what.
They know the story.
Yeah.
They know what's happened.
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Just wanted to clarify, make
yeah,
sure
and I
that
have talked to them
yeah.
about the fact that I'm going to be here. So.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, lovely.
Great.
Yeah, they're supportive.
Great.
Yeah.
So sorry to get us back on track. So you have one kid enters Lucas enters the world, and suddenly Justin isn't the center of attention anymore.
Yeah. So my world completely changed because at that age I was 31 when I had Lucas, and none of my friends had babies, and they were all still off a lot of them were traveling. Like a lot of my close friends didn't have their first baby till they were in like 40s, early 40s. So I was suddenly at home alone with this baby that wouldn't stop crying, and I was exhausted and very emotional, and he wasn't incredibly supportive.
Surprise.
Yeah, I'm not terribly shocked.
You know, it was all about what it was taking away from him, the time and attention.
Right.
And then it became a bit of a competition as well, you know. So that was really hard to navigate, especially because, I didn't have really any support or...
No, because by this stage you were still not hanging around a lot of friends.
Well, no.
Yeah.
Like all my gym friends were off partying and going to dance parties and doing all that stuff. So that,
And with Justin, you guys didn't form a routine of seeing other people and seeing friends, going for dinners and all that. You started out quite separate and alone, so that didn't really grow.
I think over the years too, like I just kind of got alienated because if we did go out and do a group thing, he would behave so embarrassingly that it would be so unpleasant that I just started avoiding it. I don't think I even realised that was what I was doing. And then having a child is a good excuse to miss everything, you know.
But that happens a lot, right? So it's when people talk about the fact that they were alienated from their friends, it never seems to feel like something where someone's like, I don't want to see your friends. It's usually a choice made by that person that because of the behaviour of their partner, they don't want to put them in the same room together with their friends. And like I've been in that same position as well, where I was just like, well, I know that person doesn't like that person, so I'm going to separate them. But that is altogether a strategy that they use, right? Their partners are obnoxious so that you will make the decision so that they can't be blamed for any of that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, some of the, like, my friends, I just thought they just must think he's such a dick.
Did they ever tell you?
Not
Did they
to
ever?
my face. Not till
much later.
After we separated. Then they were all like, "Oh, well, I always thought he was an asshole." I'm like, could have told me that.
But you
can't.
You can't because then you would have again avoided socializing with that person, which would have put you further away from a friendship network.
But you know, he'd just do those awful things, like just leave sometimes. Like, you know, we'd all be out and as a group and chatting and whatever, and I'd turn around, he'd just be gone. And like, how do I, that's so embarrassing. Or like he'd just sit there and not talk to anyone, or just, it was just so uncomfortable. And I'd spend the whole night trying to baby him, making it all right for him, and I wouldn't have a good time anyway.
Yeah.
So, and you know, God forbid if some guy came up and tried to buy me a drink or like, then it was like all over.
That's all on.
Yeah. So anyway, had Lucas, and then within 2 years I had two. So I had a 2-year-old and a newborn, Alice, which again, like, oh my God, that was another level. And he just couldn't deal with the sleep deprivation or any of the full onness that comes with toddler and newborn.
Well, after the first child, did you need to convince him to have a second, or did he want a second?
Well, he is an only child.
Right.
So he would have happily stopped at one. Mm-hmm. But I'm super close to my sister. And I know that doesn't mean your kids are going to be close, but I wanted to give them the opportunity to have that relationship.
Yeah, sure.
And I think also for me, because my own family life and my upbringing, my parents was a really whole other situation.
It's a different story.
You know, Clea and I, my sister and I, Clea and I, we always had each other's backs, and it was one person in the world that really understood what you'd been through together.
Sure.
So I really wanted my kids to have that. So yeah, he did agree to number 2.
Okay.
And so after number 2, how did you cope with 3 children in the house?
That's essentially exactly how it felt.
Yeah.
And it is a good question. How did you cope? You know, it's an interesting question to ask, because at the time when you're live going through it, you probably aren't really, are you?
No,
but you subconsciously find ways.
I probably just went into survival mode. Also, at the same time that I had my daughter, my mum got very sick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She got emphysema, and for 2 years, she died when Alice was 2. So I had that as well going on, and I was pretty much her main carer as well. And I look back on it now, and I really don't know how that didn't completely break me, but I just didn't have there was no one else, and you just keep getting up and putting Weet-Bix on the table and making it work, and
And what was
it was very, very hard. And yeah, like I said, he wasn't a lot of support. And if he did do anything, he needed a lot of.
He got the praise and all.
Yeah,
that.
he needed a lot of
Yes.
applause, and he was the sort of, he'd be like, I did the dishes for you.
Here's a medal, and we've got a ceremony in your honour this Friday.
Yeah. So, I had
agony.
all that, perfect example, had all that going on. And, I remember just having this fight with him one day, and he was like, you wear jeans too much.
You're a dick too much.
Yeah.
Like,
So poor.
And it sounds so crazy
No,
now.
but
and at the time, I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I have a baby and
Two
a toddler
babies.
and a sick mum.
Yeah.
What are you expecting me to put on every day?
red lippy,
Like,
please, now.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
But,
And,
it's
like,
just...
But do you then go into defensive mode rather than being like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, do you just go
I do remember
to
we did
explain
have
why?
we did have a fight about that, because I was like, I just can't believe it. I just can't believe that your character, like, this is a thing.
Yeah.
But then, it's just all these little things along the way. It's like I always say, the relationship that I ended up in and what I ended up tolerating and accepting was so far from who I ever thought I was.
Of course.
Or
yeah.
But it's
what
so
I
gradual when that
what I
stuff
thought-
happens.
the relationship I thought I would be in. Like,
Yeah.
I look back on it now and it's just insanity. But it happens gradually. It happens
Yeah.
so slowly. And I mean, the length of time that we were together, over 19 years, that's a long time to be chipped away at.
Yeah.
There's not
That's
a lot.
brainwashing
Yeah,
territory.
there's not a lot left of you at the end of that period of time that's recognizable.
It's really
anymore.
hard, and it's really hard for everyone at home to picture how long it is and how long 19 years is. We go, oh, this song
Some
came
of
out
our
in
listeners might only be
19
years
yeah.
old.
That's
Like,
your whole lifetime. It's, we lose time is so weird. We lose track of time in really weird. This song came out 10 years ago, and we go, oh, 10 years, But 19 years with someone, and every day, well, nearly every day, you're getting chipped away at, and
Yeah, and it really just wears you down. It's like a tap dripping into stone.
yeah.
And it just eventually
death for 1,000 cuts. Yeah.
Can I
Yeah.
ask, so while all of this craziness is happening with the, two very young children and your mother passing and all of this pressure welling up, did you ever have the thought even that you wanted to leave at that point? Or was it just make it work?
I think there was just too much on my plate at that stage.
Right.
My sister had left her husband when her girls were 2 and 4, and I knew how hard that was.
Right.
And I just guess I wasn't ready. Like, my role model of marriage was my grandparents, who were just loved each other so much, and my grandfather just doted on my grandmother.
Yep.
And I just was like, I didn't expect it to be a walk in the park. And I was like, I meant my vows, like, forever, till death do us part. And I was like, I just hung in there. I'm not a quitter, and maybe that's to my detriment. But, terrible things would happen, and he'd be terribly sorry afterwards. And he'd promise me that it would change. And he'd be like, I'm going to do this. I'll go on medication. I'll go and, speak to this counselor. I'll go and do meditation. Over the years, like, everything, we tried a lot of different things, and he would change for a little while, and then just slowly it would slip back. And if he agreed to go on medication, even though he was really anti-medication, because rage was a big problem, anger. And he would basically take it like you would a Panadol, so it doesn't work like that, obviously.
Oh, God, no. No. That stuff
So-
needs to build up in your system and
We
level
went through this
out.
so many times. So he would go on it, and he would start to feel a little bit better, so he'd stop taking it, but he wouldn't
Yes.
discuss it with me, so I'd start noticing this, like the behavior changing.
Yep.
And if I dared to say, so if you stop taking your medication, Why are you always on my back? I've been really good the last few days.
Yeah.
Now you're ruining it all.
Well,
and
now
why are
look-
you
yeah,
doing this
well,
to
look at
me?
you
And
now.
you're not supportive. And so I'd be checking the medication, and it just, again, it was another no-win situation. Because if I said nothing, it would get worse. If I said something, it was
It blew up. Yeah,
explosive.
that's right.
And
look-
it was always like I couldn't do anything right. So it was me that was causing him to be angry.
Right.
I packed the dishwasher wrong. I cooked too slowly. It was, oh God, it's really, sorry, it's hard to talk about.
No. I get it. I wasn't there for 19 years, but like I've been in that relationship, and even I'm going, oh,
Yeah.
like it's
It
hard
was
to listen
so
to.
exhausting and suffocating, and you're just walking on eggshells all the time, like towards the end. So I'm fast forwarding. After Mum died, my kids were 2 and 4, and I just really went into a very deep hole after that. Sorry.
That's all right.
No.
Take your time. Take a minute. It's totally fine. And I know that hole you're talking about. I'm not going to try and claim to have gone through anything as real as you, as anything as monstrous, as anything as big. Right? But I know that hole. I know what it's like to be in that place, and you don't know who you are, or you don't know who your friends are. You don't know. You're upset at yourself for things that you've done, and you want to change so much that you have done. And you're just lying in that hole, and
You're
you can't.
living in
you can't-
fight or flight. You're
Yeah.
living in fight or flight mode, and that is so fucking exhausting.
Yeah. So for a few years, I just didn't really see anyone or speak to anyone. You would never know it to look at the photos in the album because, again, for Weet-Bix.
Yeah.
I had to still get up, and I had to still get the kids to school and daycare, and I had to, I had to function, but I'd pretty much do that. Like I'd drop the kids to daycare on the days that Alice went because she was still really little, and I'd just come home and I'd sleep. And, I just wouldn't return my friends' calls. I wouldn't answer emails. And just eventually they stopped ringing, And a lot of people drop away too because they don't know what to say. They haven't experienced a loss like that themselves, and it's so awkward for them that they just say nothing. It's not that they necessarily don't care. And then it gets too long, and but that whole time, like, he was not very understanding or supportive, and it was always more about how me not coping was affecting him.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And the knock on, like how hard it was for him dealing with me.
Poor thing. Sorry.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
We're just gonna mash that as we buy everyone.
I
in the
just
studio some time.
looked over to the producer, and I'm like, it feels like a moment. I'm too mad to say it.
Yeah, I feel like I'm sort of jumping all over the place. But
No.
it's,
to cover.
like I said, it's such a long period of time, and there was just so many little moments that you're just like, what the hell?
You're trying to cover 19 years of history, so that's
Yeah.
understandable jumping around. One phrase I want to bring up is the idea that it's sort of an excuse and real wisdom. And that's like marriage is hard, right? Or marriage takes hard work. That's wisdom because it does take work, hard work every day, day in, day out, working at a checking in, showing up, being responsible. But that's also an excuse. It also gets used as an excuse by people who are in trouble in some degree, where they go, oh no, it's not that he's bad, it's marriage is hard.
And of course, this is a struggle because I've just lost my mother.
Yeah.
My kids are little. Financially, we were struggling as well.
If,
And then there was always that having to build him up.
it's a lot of work.
It's like, he always sort of had this chip on his shoulder about he should be more successful. Like he would be yell at Michelle Bridges on the television because I should be on that. Like I've been a personal trainer for 10 years. I am much,
Yeah.
like he'd get mad at Jamie Oliver. It was,
Oh God, how exhausting
And I'd
just
be like,
being
you know,
jealous of
yeah.
everybody in the world.
it pretty much was like that. It was like I find people like that inspiring. How
Yeah.
amazing is that? Like, like they're out there and it's fantastic. Like great.
Yeah.
But he took it as like, it should be me. Why isn't it me? Like,
Because you're sitting at home yelling at a television instead of actually
that's
speaking
right.
to people who could make it happen.
Yeah, and I think he was just really pissed off with the universe that it didn't fall in his lap and just happen for him. But it was just this continual having to build him up and just, I guess, trying to maintain some sort of just survival, really.
So, okay, as we've said, it's a long span of a relationship. So let's kind of jump somewhere towards the end. What are some of the biggest differences that now looking back that you noticed in who you were towards the end versus who you are now or who you thought you wanted to be when you first started dating him?
Well, I guess something that I would just want to say about period we were together is that it was very emotionally abusive, verbally, but he also was physically abusive a few times. But it's just amazing that, you know, you get to that, you're like, it's not that bad. Like, you almost have to tell yourself that so you can stay there. And I think it's even still hard for me to talk about it because for that long when you've been protecting someone, because you don't want people to think badly about them, but also because you're embarrassed that you're in that situation and you're choosing to stay in it. I think that people, and I know I did it myself where you'd see the news and you'd be like, why did she stay with him? Like, I don't understand. And then like now I realize that was me. I was that person.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of it just escalated from like, I guess coming to the end, there were a few really horrible things that happened. And the funny thing is that the nail in the coffin wasn't even close to the worst. It just was just a moment. We probably should have at least broken up 2 years before we did, but we went on a cruise 2 years before we actually separated. It was not what I wanted to do, but he really wanted to go on it. So we went on this cruise and, the kids had a great time, but towards the end, it was the last night and we went out for drinks. Everyone goes out for drinks on the last night and you've got to put all your cases outside the room. And we left the kids back in the room, with the telly and food and everything. And one of us was going back and checking on them. It was just sort of down the hallway. And so we were sort of doing that like for a few hours. And I turned around and we got chatting to some other people like you do on a cruise, It's just really like, and I turned around at one point and he was just gone. And I assumed that he must have gone back to check on the kids. And so I kept chatting and, a couple of people were like, oh, where's he gone? And I'm like, oh, he must have gone back to check on the kids. I'm sure he'll be back in a second. And he didn't come back. And so this guy that was sitting beside me said, oh, like, do you want me to get you a drink while he's, while you're waiting for him to come back? And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Like, all right then. And next thing I know, like he brought me the drink back. And next thing I know, Justin's over his shoulder, like, screaming, and the music was quite loud where we were and we were sort of near the door, but screaming. He's like, you better fuck off, mate. And this guy he just disappeared into the crowd and he's just yelling at me and I'm like, what's wrong? What are you doing? And he's like, you've got to come back to the room with me right now. And I'm like, I know the kids are back there. And I'm like, I'm not going back to the room with you like this. You need to calm down and then I'll come back to the room with you. And sip of water. My mouth's getting dry.
That's all right.
And he's like, you're coming back with me now. And I'm like, just calm down. And he grabbed me by the arm and pulled me. And there was a few stairs down and I lost my balance and he just dragged me like up those, those long carpeted hallways. Yep. And I was calling out. I was like, you're hurting me. Please stop, please stop. And he kept dragging me. You're coming back to the room. And he rounded a corner and there was a maid out in the hallway with a trolley. And he stopped then and she called security. And they came and at that point, I just wanted to get back to the room to my kids. And I just wanted to get off that fucking boat. And the head of security was actually a woman. And she came up to me and she's like, do you want to press charges? And I was like, no, like, it's fine. And we'd had sort of episodes like that before, but not in such a public place.
Yeah, sure.
Like, no one else had really been involved before. And so she went and looked at the security footage. She said I could have pressed charges if I wanted to, but I was like, he just dragged me up the hallway. It's just amazing where your brain goes to. Like,
You just go, it was just.
Yeah.
And so they took him away for the night because he was quite drunk. They took him away to cool down somewhere else. And the next morning we were all getting off the boat at like 6 a.m. or something. But I just remember like going back to the room and, just the kids putting them to sleep and just being awake all night, lying there looking at the roof, just waiting for it to get light so I could get off that boat, and just being embarrassed that other people had seen it and then being worried for him that they might go to the police or, that the footage was out there.
I feel so sad for you that you weren't worried for you, Luce.
Yeah, that's what I was replaying in my mind over and over again.
Well, it's just making it okay for everyone, like especially the kids. Like, I didn't want that to be their memory. Like, they didn't see any of it, and I just didn't want, I just didn't want that to be a part of
course,
ruining the cruise for them. Anyway, we got home and he was so apologetic. I remember I sat in my room for like 2 days and I didn't know what to do. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I did that to my beautiful wife. And, I'll never do it again. And this year's going to be different. It was always, every year it was going to be different. And every year it would be better for a little bit and then it would just get worse again. And I didn't realise it at the time, but he'd actually taken all the skin off one of my hips, which took a long, it was like massive carpet burn basically.
Imagine.
It took a long time to heal. And there was a scar there for a long time too. So, and he was better for a while after that, but it's like that it had to get that bad. And I stayed with him. And I probably should have left then.
And I'm betting he was only apologetic because he was embarrassed because he did in public and people saw the behavior for once.
Yeah.
So he embarrassed himself and then had to, because there was witnesses for once. So that's why he came back so apologetic, so over the top to try and fix it.
But then I think what really spurred me towards the end was that he started having conflict with the kids. He couldn't tolerate their noise, their mess, them wanting anything from him. So over time because he was a trainer, it was, he'd be gone in the mornings, he'd be gone in the evenings. I just tried to keep them separate as much as possible. Like sometimes he could go 2 days without having actually seen them, but he'd, like, especially towards the end, he'd get home from work and he'd be like, they can't come downstairs. He didn't want them downstairs. So when he'd get home from work at like 8:30 at night, they had to be upstairs in their pajamas, ready for bed. And I would wait till he got home to have dinner with him. So I'd feed the kids earlier. I'd be with this panic to get them upstairs, get homework done, get them bathed, get them everything, and they'd be upstairs. So, we wouldn't have seen them for the whole day, and he'd get home, and even if they came down, because they're still, like, they were 10 and 12 when we separated.
They're kids. They want to see their dad and their
if,
mum.
If he, one of them came downstairs to get a book out of their bag or an apple, he would just lose it. This is my time. This is my space. You're ruining my dinner. This is my relaxing time. And I'd just be sitting there thinking, like, you're ruining it. I'd rather be sitting here with them. Like, it got to the point where I'd hear his car come home, my stomach would tighten. And it was almost like you're set dressing, like everything had to be perfect. Or it was just anything would set him off. Anything. And, for a long time, my son, who's quite sensitive, like, he would get upset when would scream. Oh, sugar, I said his name,
That's
sorry.
Okay. We'll mark it down.
Justin.
We'll get a bleep.
Yeah.
That's what it's for.
Sorry. When he would, when they'd have an altercation, Lucas was a very difficult eater. So this is another reason why I started feeding them separately, because it would cause so much tension. And Justin would, like, grab him by the collar and be like, do you want to be small for the rest of your life? And even like try to force feed him. And I would always get in between them, and then, this would then lead, like, that's when the violence escalated, because he'd be like, you're not supporting me, you're undermining my authority. And I'd just be like, I cannot support you when you parent like that. I won't. So don't ask
That's
me
not
to.
parenting.
Right, yeah,
that
that's
is like,
exactly right.
no.
So, I'd get in between the two of them, and at one stage he ended up choking me down on the floor.
Jeez.
And I managed, this is really hard. I got away from him and I actually called the police. Sorry.
That's totally fine. I'm glad that you got to a point where you could call for help.
Yep.
Didn't go well.
Oh shit.
So I just finally called the cops, and I had bruises around my wrists, around my neck, where he tried to choke me. I'd wet myself. And the police arrived, and I was upstairs with the kids because they were upset. This sounds so ridiculous when I'm telling it back. But he told them that I hit him first.
Yeah.
Fuck off. That makes me so fucking mad.
I was wondering that. Was he the one that talked to the police first? Yeah, I was wondering that.
Yeah, he told them that I hit him first, and so they took me away.
Unbelievable. I'm so sorry that happened.
Yeah.
I don't know what this.
I
don't know what to do. I don't know what to say because it's so. And that's not. I'm guessing this isn't an issue that's gone to bed. Yeah, not just for you, for all women or people being abused, right? I'm sure it still happens where husbands or abusive husbands get believed, abusive wives get believed.
Oh, like I'm so. All I can think of when I heard that story was the Gabby Petito. Like, and I know that. But just police, victims of abuse are going to sit there and go, I contributed to it because they've been victims their entire life. But when police don't have enough training to actually deal with emotional abuse and physical abusive situations and just take the word of one person and like, this is another reason why you need to entrust these kinds of things to people who are trained to deal with, psychological situations and de-escalating trauma. This shouldn't be a police issue. This shouldn't, I don't want to make this a whole defund the police issue, but holy fuck, defund the police because cops shouldn't be the people responding to these kinds of fucking pressure cooker situations because shit like this happens, and then as soon as you get back together again afterwards, someone's gonna get punished. Like, it's fucked. I'm sorry, that's just made me so mad.
Well, just for me, and they left my kids there with him.
Oh,
that's fucking horrific, Lucy.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
And you're
I got fingerprinted.
And
I was locked up the whole night. They wouldn't let me out. They said you have to stay away from him for
if you, as a mother,
12 hours.
I've seen mothers in action, right? So I know how mothers can be. And if you start kicking off in the police station about how they've got it wrong,
I just cried.
You just seem more, I don't know, guilty, and you can't help yourself.
And it was all, I think cops do a great job when they do a great job, but it was all guys that got sent out. And
this is the thing,
when
they
you
need
say
specifically trained people to make those calls.
But when you say about Gabby Petito, like that, when I watched that video and it's like the cops are laughing with him, like they're having a bit of a boys club thing. That was very much that scenario. Like when they took me down, they're like, don't look at him, don't make eye contact. But I could hear the way that they were talking downstairs because they kept us apart. Oh fuck! It was awful. I had to go to court.
And I'm so fucking sorry. That's awful.
Again, I just wanted to say whatever it was that was going to make it go away because I guess I was really scared that, they might take the kids away or. Yeah. So, that happened. And then, there continues to be conflict between, he was very hard on my son. And, I think I just got to a point where I realized that what sort of example was I setting for my kids that this is what a loving relationship and marriage should look like.
Right.
Like, I feel like, people, when I finally left, they said to me, oh, you're so brave. But I didn't feel that way. I just felt like he left me with no other choice at that point. Like, it was like, well, you've made it impossible to stay now. So it's terrifying.
I'm kind of glad he did make it impossible to stay. And as awful as limit that you, a non-quitter of anything, had to get pushed to.
I think I won that club. Yeah. I know. Like, not the club you want to be in. But I think, it's like I didn't want to break up the family. I knew it was going to be. And, for the last.
You'd also have years of him explaining to you
why it was all my
fault,
it was all
that
your
it was
fault,
like that you would have been taking it on for years and years.
Oh, and there's also that no you're so much hard work.
Yeah,
and there's like you'd never survive without me. Like,
and there's a social stigma around single mums or divorced women. There's so many.
I don't think I was so concerned about that as I presented him very well to everyone else. Like, nobody else would have had a clue. Like, not even my sister knew how bad it was.
Sure.
Because I was like, if I am staying, I don't want everyone to, if he does actually get better this time, and if things do get better, then I don't want people to know that that's where it's been, and, but when I saw where it was heading with my son, like, my son started getting angry back at him and getting very defensive of, like, standing up for me. And I just thought, I could see that in the future there was going to be a time where it was probably going to get physical between my son and Justin. And I thought, I cannot, as a mother, wait for that to be the straw. I can't let that happen. And like the last 6 months were so bad that I was basically having a complete physical breakdown. But, again, the focus was all on me not coping. Like, for probably a good 18 months, like after the cruise, pretty much I couldn't sleep. The last 6 months I couldn't keep food down. But, I was just always trying to make it so normal for the kids. And, like, I look back on it now, and the kids and I have talked about it now. It's like in the mornings I'd be getting them ready to get them off to school to then go to work at the studio and do my day there, and then come and pick them up from school and then get their dinners and get all that done before he came home. So everything was perfect, and then second dinner and
I met you towards the end, I'm pretty sure. And I swear to God, like, she's just absolute sunshine and rainbows and light. There's no fucking way I would have guessed. Like, when you announced that you were separating, even the way that you announced it made it sound like it was this beautiful, amicable, conscious uncoupling, that you were being, it's just
Olympus
time,
has fallen, Cupid has hung himself because this great romance has come to an end.
A conscious, what was it?
Conscious uncoupling or whatever it was, like it just.
Well, there was a reason for that. It's the kids.
Yeah, of course. I would have had no clue. Like, and I know that we weren't super close back then, but like
nobody did.
And
that's the thing. Like, I guess if anyone's listening who's in a similar experience, it's like, I really understand that you protect them, but it does become to your own detriment, because then you don't have the people around you to support you. And if I had that, and if I'd been more honest, I might have left sooner. I don't know. It'll, at the end of the day, I guess it all happens the way it's meant to. But I mean, at the end of the day, so, oh my God, you're going to love this. He wants to go on another cruise.
What, like
2 years after the first one?
Oh
no,
I was
not
going to say, like, what?
Oh God, no. So 2 years after that cruise, he got an offer to go on another cruise, and he got a discount because he was going on as a motivational speaker.
Fantastic. Just fantastic.
Oh,
it's really
Jesus.
And not only is it another cruise, which I did, I probably will never go on another cruise in my life, I don't think.
No.
But it was not only another cruise, it was the same boat.
Oh, good.
The exact same boat and the exact same cruise.
No.
And
no.
So he came to me with this whole...
I'm sorry. If that's the same boat and security knows this man, and we're going to ask to press...
No, there's... that because, of course, that did cross my mind, but there's no...
Because I was like, in what... universe would a boat that knows who this person is ask him to motivate anybody?
Motivational speaker.
Yeah. So he told me about this about 6 months before, and I was like, I just said to him, I don't know, I don't think I can do this.
No.
And of course, I was like not being supportive. Take one for the team, I think was the expression.
I feel like you did on the
like
last
why can't you just get over it? You're like a dog with a bone. Like that happened 2 years. I said I was sorry.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was loud.
No.
But
Like,
yeah, that was basically how the communication. And like it was being mean to the kids because they would be so. He'd already told them about it too.
Of course he had.
So now if we don't go, it's because Mum doesn't want to get on the boat.
Of course,
right?
of course.
Gee whiz.
So I said yes, I'll go on the boat, and now I look at it and my body just shut down. I think my body just went, if you're not actually physically going to stop yourself from getting on that boat, I'm going to make you stop.
Yeah.
So I had to get a doctor to come to the house the night before I was meant to get on the boat to sedate me, inject me with Valium so I could get on the boat.
It's pretty.
You think that would be enough for me to go?
It's a pretty major, step to
So
get
there
on
was
the
we're a
boat.
bit traumatized here,
Yeah.
maybe.
So yeah, the response was, okay, here's what I need to get through this, not I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
I need to do this for the kids. I can't let everyone down. So, oh my God, got on the boat, and we'd made an agreement to not go near where the incident happened. We're not going to the front bar. We're not going to go up and down this bit of carpet.
I feel like he's where the incident happened and you'd need to stay away from him to not go
a
near where
little
the
bit of that,
incident
however.
happened.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyway, went on this cruise and he was doing his motivational speaking. So obviously people, it's a big boat and there's a lot of people, right?
Mm.
So
If you're a speaker
but-
or a performer in any of these
but
boats,
people
people
like
will see you.
know
Yeah,
him,
yeah.
and so he was on his best behavior, and but I couldn't bring up what happened last time, or
No, 'cause
anything
you'd just
like
be
that.
bringing the vibe down.
But so we're on the boat for Christmas and New Year. Great. So, we got on just after Christmas, but we're on it for New Year. So we get to New Year's Eve and there's a big party up on the top deck, right? And we're all dressed up and I've got the kids and there's meant to be fireworks at midnight. And the kids are really excited. They're setting it off on the fireworks on the island, which we're close by. And anyway, party's going on. It's all great. We're all together. We're on the top deck. We're looking out and there's a countdown. 10, 9, 8. The kids are so excited. I remember their little faces, and especially my son Lucas. He's just looking at me. It's like the best. He loves boats. He's obsessed with the Titanic. So he's met the captain. He's just like, oh. And I turn around and Justin's face is and he just goes, fuck this fucking family. And he walks off.
Wow.
3, 2,
Happy New Year.
1, and my kids are there, and I'm just looking at Lucas, and it's Happy New Year, and they haven't realised yet that he's stormed off, and I'm just like, yay, look at him, giving them cuddles, and I'm like, oh, look, that's so amazing, and then it gets to a point where they're like, where's Dad? And I'm like, oh, I see Lucas's little face when he went from that happy excitement to realizing Dad's not there, and he's old enough now to realize that something's happened and that I'm upset. They're not stupid.
That's right. Good.
There's only so much you can do, and I'm trying to make it all okay for them. And I'm like, I think he went to the loo. I don't know. And we found him later. He'd gone off and just got. I can't even remember why he said he did that, but. That was New Year, and he made us go back up the next night to the roof
To redo New Year's.
Fucking
hell.
I'm not even kidding. It sounds so ridiculous now.
This is the thing.
So we had
he
to
needs
actually do the
reframe that memory
countdown.
so that he wasn't a bad guy in it. Like that's so fucking typical.
and the photos.
you got to pretend that you were happy families the whole fucking time.
Yeah. So anyway, got back from that holiday, and I really deteriorated massively.
Yeah.
massively deteriorated. But again, it was like how that was affecting him. Why can't I get my life together? Like, you know, everyone else's wife is like not like this, and you're so much hard work. You're such a burden. I've always got to pick up the slack for you. Blah, 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 blah. I was just losing weight. I just couldn't sleep. Like, I get the kids ready in the morning. I'd drink my tea, and it would just, I'm making sandwiches. My tea would just come up, and I'd just be like, okay, have you got your bags? And like, it was just normal for the kids. Like, Lucas was like, Mum, I just can't, but like, that just, it never bothered, like it didn't bother me, like, because you just made it all seem okay. So anyway, things are going really bad, and we went out for a lunch, which I didn't want to go out to, and anyway, I was meant to walk home with a friend to meet him back at home to do pizzas, and we took too long walking home, and he got really mad and didn't talk to my friend the whole night. Like, it was so embarrassing. I was so embarrassed. And anyway, he was just really pissed off, and I was like, you know, he didn't talk to me for all of Sunday, and I thought, I was actually quite relieved.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God, he didn't talk to me.
Luce, what was the straw that broke the camel's back?
So it got to the Monday morning, he still hadn't spoken to me, and Lucas was home with me that day because I'd give them mummy days. So my kids hardly ever got sick, so I used to call them like, well, mummy days, but they were mental health days.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, you never have a day off school because you're sick. So
Yeah.
I'd let them stay home for a day and pick whatever they wanted to do. So it could be go to a movie, it could be go have a picnic, or it could be go to the store and get an ice cream. And like, it was so cute. And they used to plan it and get so excited about it. Like, I just loved it. So Lucas was having his mummy day on the Monday, and he wanted to sit at home with me and watch some movie. And we were watching the movie, and my phone is going off with messages from Justin, like just abusive messages, and I was just ignoring them because I was like, and watching the movie. And then Lucas's phone went off, and he picked it up and looked at it. So they only got a phone when they went to high school, so he looked at it, and I could tell he was upset. And I'm like, what is it? And he's like, it's nothing. And I'm like, show me. So I got the phone. It was a message from Justin basically saying to him, Mums, you know, I can't, you know, can't stand being around your mother, so I'm not coming home this afternoon, and like, you know, she's got to like whatever. And I just texted back on my son's phone. I'm like, good work, idiot, you've made him cry now. And then my phone rang, and it was him, and I'm like, oh, okay, we can talk like adults and just sort this shit out, like, you know, don't drag the kids into it kind of thing. And I answered the phone, and he is screaming.
Surprise for a change.
Yeah. I don't even know where he was, but oh my God. And he's like, okay, language warning. He's like, you fucking useless fucking cunt. I fucking hate you. And I just hung up.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Good is the response there.
And that second, I was just like, that's it. I'm done.
Good.
So this was about 5 months after the cruise, the second cruise.
Yeah.
And I was just, it was the most terrified and most relieved I've ever felt at the same time in 1 second. Because I was like, fuck, I don't know what's next, but that's it. It's done. Just done.
Yeah. Well done.
And I just
went
and sat back down with my son and watched the rest of the movie.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Fine.
And it's so funny because I just, like, when it actually came to crunch time, I held it all together, but I just feel like I'd done so much grieving already and so much crying in the shower, and
You'd spent probably 17 years grieving.
Yeah. So, yeah, of course, he was like, give me another 6 months.
No.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I've given you
how
many years?
You've had 6 months, buddy. I'm like, you've had more than 6 months. You've had that, you know, you've had years. And he asked me to go to his counsellor with him. He had been seeing a counsellor, and I just wanted to facilitate getting him out of the house, really.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, but I fully expected her to be on his side because she'd only got one side of the story.
Right.
And,
Of course.
you know,
Yep.
all of his problems was because of me. So, yeah, I went to a session, and it was actually hilarious because he would be like, blah, 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 like all this, everything that was wrong with me, right? And she does this and blah, 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 blah. And so the counsellor looked at me and she's like, so Lucy, do you have anything like to say about that? Like, what's your response? And I'd go, well, and I'd just get 5 words out or something. He'd be like, blah, 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 and just talk over me. And then I just...
The therapist would have just been like, this is unhealthy.
I was so not invested at that point, so I just let him go. I'd be like...
Yep.
And then, after the second time or third time he did it, she stopped him. She's like, you take up all the space in the room. You're not letting her speak.
Give that therapist a fucking medal.
I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
She sees. She sees.
Speak.
Well, especially like the cops didn't see. And I was like, you doubt yourself too. Like, is it really that bad?
Yeah.
Am I giving up too easily? Could I, I know I'm not a perfect person. I'm not. Like,
no one is.
I try. And I can see now how it was just such a vicious cycle because the angrier he got, the more anxious I got. The more anxious I got, the angrier he got. And it was never going to get better.
Yeah. Okay.
Gee whiz.
Holy shit,
forgive me, readers. I forgot that I was on a podcast for about 40 minutes there. And I've just been, don't apologize, Lucy. It's such a horrible story. And my heart breaks the most for your kids, particularly your little boy. Because I'm a sensitive little boy. And I was that sensitive little boy. However, I had happy parents. So I can't imagine like you just looking in the world full of wide-eyed wonder and your dad screaming at you. So my heart breaks for your little boy the most in the story. Gee whiz, what a saga! What a terrible saga to have to live through. I'm kind of speechless because I can't match it. The experience, I can't match it. So I can only sort of apologize.
The sad thing is that there are people who can match it, and I hope that they're listening and that they know that they're not alone, and that you can get out and you will be okay, and you can get help. There's a help out there. That's where I'm getting with this. So she got him out of the house, and he thought it was temporary, and he hilariously called the mental health team on me. I was at home, so he was staying with a friend for a while, and I opened the door. I was cooking the kids dinner, and it's the mental health team, and they're like, we've been asked. He's asked us to do a welfare check because clearly I wasn't doing well because I was leaving him.
Yes.
So at this point, I've told him it's over. I'm not coming back. I'm sorry, I don't love you anymore.
He's clutching at fucking straws.
And I've got my little girl here. She's like, "Mummy, what's this about?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's nothing, sweetie. It's all right." And I'm like, "I can't talk to you now. I've got my kids here." Like, and they gave me their cards, and I was so mad. I'm like, "What a fuckwit!"
Yeah,
seriously.
Yep.
And so they went away, and I just thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make an appointment. I'm going to go see them, and I'm going to tell them everything.
Yes.
Everything.
Yes.
And it's the first time that I had done that.
And said it all out loud.
Absolutely. And just got a perspective on it from a professional, for one, and from someone who's not involved. And it's not my friend or my sister who's like, oh, he's an arsehole, just,
Yeah.
And I told her everything. And, of course, he wanted to come to this appointment with me.
Fuck off.
He's like, you're not going to be able to drive yourself there, because my anxiety was so bad at this stage that I had trouble pretty much doing everything outside of this tiny little comfortable bubble. Yeah. But I'm like, no, it's fine. I'm going to go on my own. And, told her everything, and she hooked me up with all these, like she told me that it was domestic violence, that I was a victim, that, there were people out there who could help me. She hooked me up with all these services, who to speak to at Centrelink. Because the other thing that I wanted to say is that over the 19 years we were together, he took over all the finances.
Of course he did.
Okay.
And I did all the kids' stuff. And please don't do that. Please know what's going on with your finances, and don't hand over that power. Like, I would get money in an account for groceries and the kids' stuff.
It's and another way of controlling someone.
Really didn't know what was going on very much beyond that. I would sign stuff. like my own stupid fault too. But
No. This is a pattern from people who manipulate. Their entire lives are spent manipulating people. And if he can't have control over your mind, then he'll have control over the atmosphere
It's
where
so
you are.
insidious.
He'll have control over the money that you spend. He'll
Or
have
your
control
body,
over the body that you are in.
But also what happened during this time is like when I began the relationship, to pay the rent, you would send a check off in the mail. And I was always very independent. I'd left home at 16. I lived on my own. I was very independent, always worked, everything. But over the time that we were together, he took over paying all the bills, registering the cars, organising the mortgage, doing all that stuff.
Did he want a medal for that as well too?
Oh, yeah.
For
Yeah.
taking it all off your
It's
little woman hands?
I've been paying bills all day. It's very stressful. You don't understand.
It's so stressful to push a button on a bank.
It's tough.
So, like, all of that stuff was very foreign to me. I didn't know how to pay a bill online. I didn't know how to check my bank balance online. It sounds ridiculous now. I didn't remember what the process was to register a car or do any of that stuff.
Right, yeah.
So sometimes I'd say, look, I want to do it too. Like, show me how to pay this bill online. And oh my God, how easy is it? It's really easy, guys.
Yeah.
But he'd start to show me, and if I got confused, because I was in such a state, I just
your
couldn't.
pretty little lady brain.
I couldn't.
There.
I couldn't absorb anything, and
No.
he'd be so aggro, and he'd be like, "Look, oh, you're so stupid. It's so fucking easy. Why can't you fucking understand it? It's so easy." And I'd get upset.
No,
and
you shut down when people act like that at you.
and I just couldn't. I couldn't figure out how to do it. So I just So I mean, it also kept me there because I was like, I don't know how to do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how to adult. That's how I felt. I know how to be a mum. I know how to look after the kids. Like, he never came to a doctor's appointment with them or took them to the dentist or went to a school thing or did any of that stuff.
Yeah, that's why he was never going to win against a welfare check, because he knows nothing about his
Yeah,
own
that's
children. Like,
Yeah. So anyway, after the she hooked me up with all those services, which was great, and I found out that I could get the family tax benefit, and I was going to be all right, financially. Which and we sorry, where was I going with that? Yeah. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
We'll put a whole bunch of links in the show notes as well to all of the different places where you can get help. So at this part of the podcast, we just normally talk about like what we've learnt. And I feel like a shitload. I feel like I've learned a lot. I feel like there's been little lessons throughout the whole podcast. But my most important lesson is that if you ever get to a point in your life where you feel like you have to keep somebody else happy, like you're constantly tap dancing to keep somebody else happy, you've got to figure out why that is. You've got to sit there and kind of, like, it's hard because, you can't spend your entire life looking after someone else. And also, if you ever notice that you don't have a support network, you might want to start asking yourself questions as to why that is, and whether you might want to try and get a support network. Like, I know that sounds so fucking stupid. Like, just get one. Like,
right.
Producer Zane's pulling his mic down. No. Yeah.
Yes or no?
Sure, I'll jump in. I didn't want to interrupt what you were saying. I just have something to say. Throughout the story, a number of times you discounted your bravery and how brave you were. And when people tell you, like, I'm not brave, it's like, I don't think you should do that, because he was using your bravery to keep you where you were. Like, that, he was using your good traits and the good person that you were to manipulate you to make things workable for your family and how you were. So I wanted to say, don't discount how brave you were and how brave you are, because it's only because of that you got through the other end. Yeah. And absolutely, like what you were saying, is like, as soon as someone makes you responsible for their emotions, something's going wrong. You're never responsible for someone else's emotions. You're responsible for your behavior. Yeah, so that's...
Yes, there's some brightly lit flags to keep an eye out for there, dear readers at home. Mine will be broader. Mine will be bigger. Elizabeth made a very good point a while ago about defunding the police, and I want to jump on that because she's right. Now, I know some of you may be listening to me going, you bleeding heart lefty, why would you want to get rid of the police? That's not what we're doing.
We're saying.
We're keeping the police where they are, and they're going to be doing all the good work they do, solving crimes and all that. but we're going to take some of that money and we're going to put it into mental health specialists. We're going to put it into people that can come to these domestic disputes,
violence,
etc., and who can properly deal with it.
Who know how to de-escalate, who know how to, assess properly and thoroughly what is going on in those situations, knowing the different tactics that both victim and abuser will often, like the patterns that they go through, and be able to recognize where that stories are. Because police do great work when it comes to, catching murderers and whatever, but like in situations like this, they don't have the training
that's exactly
to be able to deal with these kinds of situations in a way that is sensitively approaching it and able to understand on a mental health and safety level what is going on.
So I don't know how we get that going in the state you live in. If you live in Australia, if we make it, how we make it a national program or a state-run program. If you live in America, I don't know how it happens. I don't know how we get it to happen, but it is important. So I want to push everyone to sort of push that thought a bit more. Do you?
Lucy, I just want to thank you so much for coming to talk. I know that it can't have been easy. I think that even telling the story today is an incredible act of bravery. And even if there's only one person out there who listens and goes, holy shit, she's telling my story, you know, then it's all worth it. Like, and I can't believe, like, I knew a bit of the story, but I'm so sorry you had to go through that, and I'm so pleased you've come out the other end. We don't have time today, but I will bring Lucy back to tell her happy ending story, because by God, it's a good one, guys.
So some incentive to keep listening.
It is such a good little story. So we'll bring her back on another day to tell the literal rainbow to the end of this story. But yeah, any final words, Miss Luce, before we go?
I just hope this has helped somebody, and I do feel like I've jumped all over the place. But when I tried to prepare something, it just was getting too overwhelming. So I thought I'd just come in and say whatever.
You did a beautiful job of
so I hope it
talking about
sense.
The issues in a way that I think will be very helpful for anyone listening.
I heard something, because I did think about not coming in. I thought about maybe it's too hard for me and I won't be able to do it. But I heard something that says recover loudly so others don't die quietly.
Oh my God, I love that so much.
We're going to take that. We're going to leave you with that thought, readers. We're not going to do a general outro.
Everything else will
Can
be
you
in the
repeat
show
that for
notes.
us, Lucy?
Recover loudly so others don't die quietly.
La la la